There's simply no better way to drink in the views offered by the Himalayas than on a motorcycle, and there's simply no better tour guide than a motorcycle that's born in and bred specifically for this terrain. Royal Enfield broke onto the adventure tourer motorcycle scene back in 2016 with the Royal Enfield Himalayan, and the bike next to me is its successor, the all-new Royal Enfield Himalayan 452. After nearly a decade of serving as one of the world's most popular, robust and affordable adventure tourers, the Royal Enfield Himalayan has received its first generational update, which promises to address the bike's chief shortcomings, which included feeling underpowered, being a tad unrefined, and having a suboptimal power-to-weight ratio. Every component here is brand new, starting with this 452cc liquid-cooled engine. It's the first liquid-cooled engine to be produced by Royal Enfield, and it replaces the LS410, which is found on the current gen Himalayan. The interesting thing is that not only is it higher on power, that was about 25 horsepower, this is actually close to 40 horsepower. So it makes about 65% more horsepower, it makes 25% more torque. The torque peaks in a little early, so you get peak torque at about 5,500 RPM, but at 300 RPM you can access about 88% of that torque. So it makes it a lot more conducive to just going over boulders and for proper off-roading. And speaking of proper off-roading, you've got 20 millimeters of extra ground clearance here. Of course, this is destined for export markets all over the world. So I'm talking about Europe, North America, South America, Ecuador, all kinds of countries. So to accommodate taller riders, you can also lift the seat height by a few millimeters. The all-new Royal Enfield Himalayan is exactly what you'd expect it to be. The faster, lighter and more adept successor to the original. Gone is the bare-bones industrial toolshed project vibe of the Himalayan 411, and it's been replaced by a machine that looks even more purpose-built and adventure-ready than before. A larger fuel tank, more power, more torque, a new gearbox, a larger 21-inch front wheel. The Himalayan 450 carries forward pretty much nothing from the original other than the principle of democratizing adventure touring. The combination of liquid cooling and more power has resulted in a noticeably smoother and perkier throttle delivery. The Himalayan 450 gathers pace in a way that allows you to enjoy the twists and rapid elevations of its namesake a lot better than before. Throttle is further aided by a ride-by-wire delivery system, and the whole approach makes the engine's performance more consistent, stable and efficient no matter what the terrain or the ambient temperature. There's also a new 6-speed gearbox that's more suited to long-distance touring than before. Low-speed cruising in 6th gear is fairly easy, although the gearbox still requires constant engagement from the rider if you want to extract the most out of this engine. On these mountain roads, I found myself predominantly in 3rd gear, which allowed me to access peak torque at 5,500 RPM at all times, while slotting into 2nd gear around hairpins. But with that, we've just scratched the surface of the 450's abilities. Now, of course, this is more off-road friendly than the previous one. It's a little taller. As a result, the ground clearance has gone up by 20 millimeters, and that makes a huge difference on terrain like these, which is specifically what the Himalayan was designed for. You also get a liquid-cooled engine, and as a result, performance is a little more consistent across varying temperatures, especially extreme heat. There's no heating issue. It's also a little more refined, it's smoother, the engine noise is a little more refined. And of course, this being a single cylinder unit, it is prone to inherent vibrations, but they've added some foot peg mounts which kind of absorb it a little bit so you don't feel it through your feet all the time. The overall sort of placement and centralized mass has also been altered. Center of gravity is now a little more effective. It's a lot more flickable on the tarmac. It's actually very agile. You can actually scrape the foot pegs. In that sense, it's a lot more wholesome. You can ride it in the city. It doesn't feel very heavy. It doesn't feel cumbersome, and you get a lot more torque at the bottom end. So that's just applicable to most riding scenarios. And speaking of riding scenarios, there are 4 of them: performance and eco, with the option of turning rear ABS on or off for off-roading scenarios. However, you can't change modes on the fly, and switching from performance to eco requires you to stop the bike and ideally restart it. Another really interesting aspect is that there's a new TFT screen with a proper sat-nav display. Royal Enfield has created an all-new app which is different from the one that you get with bikes like the Meteor and the Hunter, which only have turn-by-turn navigation. But in this, you have a proper sat-nav display because it connects to your phone through the app and through Google Maps. The brand has worked with Google specifically for this. So you get a Google Map display on it. On terrain like this where, it's very easy to get lost and not be able to find your way back, and you lose signal a lot of the times, it's a godsend, honestly. With those changes addressed, it's time to talk about the big question. How much better is the new Himalayan 450 from the old one, both on and off the road? The Himalayan now gets a proper 21-inch front spoke wheel. It's the only one in its segment to do so. And that makes it the most capable bike in its segment when it comes to riding over rocky terrain, icy cliff sides and water-filled troughs. Basically, your average Himalayan B-road. Thanks to the fuel tank and saddle edge being narrower, it's now easier to stand and maneuver the bike through rough, gravelly patches. And given how 88% of the torque is now easily available at 3,300 RPM, there's enough grunt to clear ruts, ditches, and climb big rocks with ease. Every possible metric that you can think of from an adventure touring point of view, this bike has addressed, and it's not forgotten its core diktat, which is to democratize adventure touring. So as a result, the curb weight of this bike is still the same, but Royal Enfield intends to sell it across the globe to various markets, both developing and developed. So Europe, North America, South America, Ecuador, a country where it's very popular. So as a result, they've tried to design it for various body types. So yes, if you are of average height, you can plant both your feet on the ground very well. But if you're a little taller and you wish for a little more ground height, then you can raise the seat height by a few millimeters as well. So that kind of helps taller riders, and it still feels very nimble. It's very easy to just maneuver in general, more so than the previous one. It looks absolutely smashing. I mean, gone is that sort of straightforward, clean-cut industrial design, which kind of had a project bike sort of vibe to it. With more bottom-end torque and a bigger front end, the Himalayan 450 is now ready to take on competition offered by the likes of the KTM Duke 390 Adventure. It's also got 200mm inverted front forks and a wider 140/80 rear section tire, and that allows it to hug the tarmac more effectively and make it more comfortable to ride on long distances. Its centralized mass, along with the engine being a stressed member of the chassis, makes it more flickable, and a larger 17-litre fuel tank makes it the better long-distance tourer. Add to that its connected tech capabilities and the 30-odd list of accessories, and the Royal Enfield Himalayan 450 starts to look like the undisputed winner in its segment.
The Himalayas are easily one of our greatest natural resources. And this bike, the all-new Himalayan, shares a synergistic bond with this this terrain in a way that perhaps even Royal Enfield couldn't have imagined. I mean, yes, it's extremely capable and it's able to traverse pretty much any kind of terrain that this area has to throw. But it's more similar to the Himalaya than we think. It demands a little bit from its rider. It wants you to give your 100%. And once you do that, not only does it astound and exhilarate, it rewards you with one of the best riding experiences that you can have with a middleweight adventure tourer currently in the market and certainly on these roads.